Lake Basin Development Authority is one of the regional development authorities that were crafted back in 1970s in a bid to spearhead development in lake regions and areas around our waters. Too much water has passed under the bridge, from controversies to successes, and here we are. Tonight on Inside Government, we want to focus on LBDA, the past, the present and the future. And joining us on the set tonight is Mr. Phillip Oyoo. He's the Chief Manager in charge of agriculture. Thank you so very much indeed for finding time to be with us here.
Thank you very much indeed. That's my pleasure.
From the time that your inception was crafted back in 1979 and up to today, we're talking about 41 years. What would you highlight, or what would you pick as one of your success stories in your operations?
Immediately the Lake Basin Development Authority started, the organization embarked on a program to study the region so as to unearth its development potentials, its natural resources, and undertook studies to see how these various resources that are based in the Lake Basin region could be harnessed to bring about socioeconomic development programs. Then, through those studies, the authority was also able to develop a long-term development master plan for what used to be Nyanza province, Rift Valley, part of Rift Valley province, and the whole of Western province. Before that, development was restricted to the district level development through district focus for rural development. But there were no transboundary development activities going on. So when the authority came in, we brought in an aspect of development that focuses on the water resources and that is transboundary in nature. So this development, long-term development program, over time has been influencing various development in this region, and even currently the various county integrated development plans are inspired by that long-range development plan. The long-range development plan were done in a way that LBDA was not supposed to be the only organization to implement them, but to usher in so many other organizations, development partners to come in and implement them. And quite a lot has happened. By that time that we are starting, even the infrastructure corridors in this region had not been properly planned. These were planned, and today we can see even the Eldoret Airport inspired by the same study, the Kisumu International Airport inspired by the same study, and even the Kengen, the Sondu hydropower electrical project, was also inspired by the same. And with the time, LBDA has also come in to implement some of those programs as it coordinates the implementation of whatever program that were unearthed by this integrated long-range integrated development master plan. So the authority, and being inspired also by what water resources can actually bring about, looked into studies that were focused on how the water resources can be converted into energy through hydropower generation. How the same water can be utilized to develop more of inland fish farming enterprises, and also the same water to be utilized in the development of agriculture, livestock, fisheries, while at the same time making sure that these are sustainable activities, healthy to the environment, and that people themselves are able to benefit from them. Then another aspect of development that LBDA brought in was a coordinated kind of development, whereby every agency was put in a platform of knowledge of what other people are doing, such that these are documented and put together. So as a result, the authority also established a documentation center where various studies of this region were kept and are still being kept, and anybody who now wants to do development can just go into them, shape them in the way that they like, or update them to the current situation and put them on implementation.
And when you talk about, you know, the lake development blueprint that was developed back in the 1980s, I mean, it had clearly outlined, you know, the various steps to be taken in a bid to develop cities and towns around our waters.
Yes.
But at some point, because of the political powers that were then, there were a little bit of marginalization in terms of investments towards some areas. There were a little bit marginalization in terms of development focus in some of these areas, which has ensured that most of those areas where your operations are based, you know, remained behind in terms of development. How do you plan, or how have you managed to play catch up with time?
Yeah, I did say that the authority, other than that master plan, that every community could utilize, every district going by the earliest stages of our development could utilize, and even currently the counties can utilize them. But in addition to this, LBDA did not leave agencies outside its scope to do development, but also implemented some activities that could quick start the development processes in some of those areas that were having high potential in this region. And the one step the authority did was to establish satellite stations scattered all over the region. And they were scattered in a way that not one region will feel that they do not have a feel of the Lake Basin Development Authority. Like now, if you go to the extreme south, you find that we have a Lichota Integrated Technology Transfer Center. That center is placed to develop agriculture in an integrated way. Livestock programs are there, crop programs are there, irrigation programs are there. If you go to the north, you also find we have got another center called Lunyu. So these centers, there are 18 in numbers, were skillfully scattered within the region so that every part of this region have a feel of it. Then when the resources were also allowing the authority to undertake much, authority also did organize programs that were geared towards reaching out the people wherever they are. So if I was to give a small example, if the authority picked on the development of inland water resources, underground water resources, the authority sank boreholes. Much as this region is the wettest in the country with so many rivers, certain parts of it are very dry. So all the dry areas, you'll find that the authority inaugurated the programs that were geared towards tapping water from underground, and these were scattered all over the communities. When it came to development of inland fish farming enterprises, 7,000 fish farming enterprise units were developed in this region, and they were also scattered all over. And you'll find that wherever you go, you'll find something that LBDA did make a footprint on and can still be seen. Yes.
You see, when you look at poverty levels, you know, back in 1970s, when you were being formed, the average in your areas of operation was between 80 and 70. 40 years down the line, you're talking about poverty levels of between 75 and 60. And one would argue that this is not a significant drop, you know, in a span of 40 years. Can we conclude that you have done a good job?
Based on that knowledge, one may not make that conclusion. But in depth, it may not really reflect the poverty journey that, or the wealth journey that this region has had with their people. Because poverty in itself is a factor of so many things come into it. And let me give you an example before even I get into that question directly. By the time this region, the authority was starting, there used to be rampant problems of cholera in this region. Do you remember that time? Cholera.
We still have problems.
And that cholera was not as it was at that time. And
maybe
you
in terms
remember,
of intensity?
There were even some leaders who said that we cannot step into Nyanza because of cholera. Those were known. But you see, when the authority got into the program that was geared towards development of sanitation facilities and also inland and underground water resources, that reduced so drastically. So the recent one may only be experienced, especially within the urban setup, whenever sanitation issues are compromised. So there you could see poverty moving not in terms of money, but in terms of the health of the people. By the time this program was starting, there were a lot of food shortages in this region. But these food shortages, you can't correlate the extent to which LBDA did the intervention to how people got into various farming activities, and now they are able to generate their own food. Then again, if you were to look at the urban setups in this region, how many urban centers were in this region by the time we were starting? And these urban setups are catalysts of economic development, people's growth as far as the financial empowerment is concerned, and they are able not only to support themselves within those urban centers, but also reach out to their relatives in the communities and support them. So it is true, we are still in the path of economic growth, and at any given time, that poverty level will be comparable to how people live elsewhere or where they actually lived before. So to some extent, it is true, we have not reached the level of wealth, even as a country, but we are moving in a pathway towards that.
Tell me this, there is no way you can discuss, LBDA without mentioning one of your flagship projects, this being exactly where we are. Quite a project, I must admit, by your standards. It has attracted a lot of controversy and a lot of attention. And one question that comes into mind, when you look at the level of investment in this place, and with an occupancy rate of less than 20%.
No, 60 now.
60?
Yes. It is at 60. It has gone beyond that. The only space you could be seeing around is that one of the anchor tenant, the supermarket. But most of these other ones are occupied.
But the occupied space is for the small cubicles, right?
Where the business is catalyzed even more.
Okay, I need to confirm that.
Yes. All right, but just go.
Would you say that, the idea of putting up this mall, which was conceptualized back in 1990s, early 1990s, do you think this investment was worthwhile?
Maybe a small correction. This concept was developed not in 1990s. This concept was developed in the year 2008 there. Initially, what we had in mind was to develop a LBDA headquarters.
In 1990s?
In 1990s.
And then the plan was reworked?
That plan was actually held off, and this new idea came. So this new idea was to catalyze the business process in this town. Kisumu was seen to be developing. So many people coming into this place here, and majority of them could be coming in to occupy offices, to do works here and there, to be employed, but not so much organized system whereby people could do their business, catalyze even that employment to program further and further and further. The facility was also developed in a way that was to see businesses being done in a more sustainable way. You mentioned the problem that we have as far as discharge of waste material is concerned. This one here was developed in a way that it has zero discharge, so that all the discharge from this place here are subjected to biodigestion, converted in another form, and utilize it in a way that is conducive to the environment. At the climax of everything, this facility will be fully powered with electricity. So this was to give an inspiration to all other developers that were to come in this region. Of course, for the authority, it will also help in generation of some revenues, because we also have to generate some revenues to utilize in developing the people of this region. Most of the program we do are service and orientation, and we cannot rely on the government throughout and all the programs. So to some extent, this could also generate some revenue to the authority to utilize further in other development.
Tell me
As I
please.
have said,
Mhm.
the inspiration is completely different from maybe what some other people may have thought. This was to be an example to other people.
Mhm.
Or do you know of other facilities that, for example, is that conducive to the environment, that it doesn't have waste that now ends up polluting the Lake Victoria? No, this one are not there. And
This
indeed,
region.
it has happened
Mhm.
from the time this building started coming up.
Mhm.
Even the surrounding areas here have had a lot of development. The land value around this place here has increased. But then there has been also some delays in its operation.
Tell me
One
please.
of them was this road that passes next to us here.
Mhm.
And I did put it that even this road infrastructure were in our blueprint. So if the road is being developed, we
Mhm.
cannot stop it and stop it so that we have the supermarket and other business going on. So the road in itself is incomplete and has been a problem to some
This is
of our
the
people
Kisumu
coming.
Kakamega
The
Highway.
Kisumu Kakamega Highway.
Yeah.
A big section of this has been done, but there's a small stretch, about 2.5 kilometers, that are not very comfortable for the business development.
And actually, it is almost outside, the mall, which
Yes.
definitely affects, traffic flow.
Exactly.
That aside, tell me things. There has been a lot of focus, on corruption or illegal procurement around the construction of this mall. I first of all would want to hear your thoughts. Do you think some of it is over-exaggerated? And how has this managed to impact business in this mall negatively?
I'm a little shy to comment on that because that is already in another platform somewhere.
Mhm.
And in that platform, I think whatever thing that has gone to court is just important that the court should do that process and finalize with it. But whichever the case, you can see this facility here. It is not hot air. Or did you see a hot air around? This is not hot air, it is so real. And I think I'll leave it only to that extent.
I know you may not want to mention, to discuss it in details because of the ongoing court cases. But do you think, those issues around corruption and court cases have somehow derailed, business in this mall?
No. The court cases may delay programs as far as the payments that relate to the construction work, but the mall, the main thing that delayed its operation is the road
Is the
infrastructure that is going around there.
Mhm.
Then there are also issues pertaining to the occupation of the anchor tenants here and the supermarket. Unfortunately, again, there has also been a problem in that industry, and it could be you know about it,
Mhm.
that now before this one occupies, issues come in that affect their business, and then it means
I know last case was supposed to be the anchor tenant.
yes, there's quite a lot of them. I may not mention them here because they are also in business.
Well, what is in the public domain is that task case definitely was one of them. We definitely understand they're going through financial challenges. Have you approached any other
Yeah.
retailer?
Quite a lot have been
Are there
approached,
prospects?
and they are developed. There are chances that soon it's going to be occupied.
Mhm.
And once occupied, the supermarket, the anchor tenant comes in, others will now also come in different ways. Like, for example, at the moment we still don't have banks around here because surely there may not be so much need for banking facilities. But once they come, I think that one is going to be solved. And a lot of developments are going on as far as that one is concerned.
Mhm.
But the fear has been the access to this place here.
The highway.
So the highway, and because the parking facility is already developed here, but
Finally.
the coming is a problem.
As we wind up this interview, briefly, where do you see the future of LBDA?
Yeah. LBDA is still there to stay for a very long time because of one mandate that will still become very difficult to fulfill by other government agencies. I did mention that this is the only organization that were created to focus on multi-sectoral issues in an integrated way. These multi-sectoral issues come in more or less transboundary nature in their approach. So it's becoming more and more difficult to find organizations that can command factors that affect issues that go beyond counties. Already we have county governments, but individual county government cannot, for example, address issues of water, for example. And let me give you one story. The Nzoia Basin with the river Nzoia could be causing floods in Budalangi, which is in Busia. But where are the sources of the river Nzoia?
Yep.
Somewhere very hub. So many counties. If a problem has to be solved of that Budalangi floods, dikes can be constructed on temporary basis, but the only solution towards this is to harness that water,
And
store that
and
water
address it
during
from
the wet season. And that dam that can store that water cannot be built in Busia.
Very well.
It has to be built in another county. The River Yala is also a problem to that place. And the Nyando Basin requires that water. So a dam somewhere has to be constructed in Nandi, whose water can be transferred through a transboundary arrangement into the Nyando Basin, which is in Kisumu County, to solve those other problems. Yes.
In the interest of time, we have to come to the end.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Phillip, for joining us on Inside Government to discuss the past, the present, and the future of Lake Basin Development Authority. Well, we've been coming to you from the amphitheater of Lake Basin Development Authority, more here in Kisumu, discussing development agenda of LBDA in the past, the present, and of course the future. We've been talking to our Chief Manager in charge of Agriculture and Development. This is Phillip Oyoo. My name is O'Brien Kimani. Thank you for your time. Good night.